Hey everybody, welcome back to the football pandemic. Matthew's not here again, but there's a free agency frenzy going on, and me and Brandon are back to talk about it. The cuts, the signings, the trades, everything going on. So stick around, and we'll be mentioning everything about it. So of course, there's no intro, outro music because Matthew's not here, but me and Brandon are back to talk about anything in the NFL. So right now, free agency started technically Wednesday, but tampering started Monday. And so there's about 100 signings we have to go over. And we'll go over some of them more, a little bit of them in depth, but some of them just briskly go over them because we don't have time for all that. So let's get right into it. Not that important. Deebo Samuel switching his number from 19 to 1. I don't know what the correlation to that is, but I guess good for him. Fletcher Cox, kind of expected to this one. Eagles defensive tackle Fletcher Cox retires a week after Jason Kelce retired. So the Eagles seem like they're losing a lot of pieces more than they're gaining pieces. In all honesty, I don't know how good they're going to be next year because of that. They've signed a couple players that we will get into in a minute, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're not going to be as good as they were last year, even though they weren't as good as they were last year than the year before. So that'll be a little bit confusing. And then the one we're all proud of, the breaking news we're all proud of, and very happy for. Lions extend Dan Campbell, head coach Dan Campbell, and I believe GM or somebody in the front office, Brad Holmes. So we're all excited about that one. Dan Campbell's done such a great job in Detroit. Even Brandon, our Packers fan, is very excited about this one, and they're rivals. So that can tell you a lot about that.
Yeah, I think the important part about the Dan Campbell extension is that we called it just as
Yeah,
his season ended in the NFC Championship game,
I do have to tweet that.
and we thought it was going to be a very important milestone for the Lions to hit this offseason was to extend Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, which I guess is Dana's husband.
I just realized what you're talking about, but yeah. Now let's get into our cuts. There's only a little list of cuts here, but Chargers released wide receiver Mike Williams due to cap space reasons, and I think he's going to get signed by next week. Honestly, this guy is once he's healthy, this guy is a top receiver in the league. And honestly, now that the Commanders lost Curtis Samuel to the Bills, which we'll talk about in a minute, I'd really love if we could get him on a nice deal. I'd really love Mike Williams to be that pair with Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. It would really go well for whoever our quarterback is, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, I like the Mike Williams idea. My problem is, as you mentioned, he can't stay healthy. He's also 29 right now, so he's a bit of an older receiver. He's not going to command the money that he's going to want, especially in the market for receivers we currently have right now. So he's going to have to go somewhere for relatively cheap on a 2 or a 3-year deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean the wide receiver market is kind of low right now. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Curtis Samuel signed a 3-year, $30 million deal, and he's not. Curtis Samuel isn't Mike Williams. I mean, Curtis Samuel's a talented receiver, but what I'm saying is, Gabe Davis. I can't remember what his deal was, but the receiver for those guys that are high risk, high reward type stuff is very low for me in my opinion.
Yeah, and another one is the gentleman out of New Orleans. The receiver, Michael Thomas.
Yep.
Another killer receiver, but
Injuries.
Again, can't stay healthy, can't stay on the field, and he'll be out sooner than later out of there, and he'll be a free agent. Another receiver cut, Hunter Renfrow out of Vegas. This one kind of surprised me. He's been a killer slot player forever.
He has.
And he's been a very consistent guy for that team. I imagine he's going to get picked up. And I think he's still relatively young. Let me look up his age really quick.
Yeah. Hunter, I think he's 18, so he's like 29, I believe. So for a slot receiver,
he's 28. He'll get a 2 or a 3-year deal somewhere that needs a slot receiver. I see Chicago trying to go after him to support their number 1 draft pick that they're about to take.
I can see that. And I can see that. We'll talk about that in a minute because we have a trade coming up with the Bears that the Hunter Renfrow move will make perfect sense because I don't believe anymore that they're drafting who everybody thought they would draft before all this news happened. So we'll get in that in a minute. But now we're going to move on to the many, many, many signings that happened. We'll just kind of go briskly over them. If we have an opinion of them, we'll talk about it. We have some highlighted that are important, whether from homer teams or just teams in our division or whatnot. To start out, Brown signed QB Jameis Winston to a 1-year deal. I know my Saints fan Nate is very upset about this. He is a very big Jameis Winston believer, and to see him not start for the Saints and they go after Derek Carr last year and pay all that money, so now they're in cap space hell, which they are every year. I saw a tweet last week, which is pretty funny, and it was something like, my favorite holiday of the whole year is seeing the Saints move around players and restructure contracts to make cap space, and that happens every single year. And I don't know if it was Sean Payton's fault or the previous GM or front office's fault, but their cap space is so screwed every year, and it's because they go big and go home for every single player that they believe in, and some of them pan out and some of them don't. But overall, Jameis Winston signs with the Browns. He's a solid backup for Deshaun Watson, who last year was very much injured, and they just lost Joe Flacco to one of our homer teams, actually, which we'll talk about in a minute. But my Saints fan, who's a friend of mine, is very sad to see Jameis Winston sign with another team.
Yeah, then we have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson returns to Philly after a short stint in Detroit, where he did relatively well.
Yeah, he did relatively both teams. But what's funny about all this is, I think with the Lions, or right after he left the Lions, he said something about the Eagles fan base, and it was like, yeah, the Eagles fan base is like one of the most raunchiest, the dirtiest fans in the league, and then he leaves the Lions and then comes back to Philadelphia. So you can imagine what his welcoming party is going to be like after he said that to everybody, or publicly to the Eagles fans per se.
Honestly, I think it's going to be the same welcome back either way. It wouldn't have
Probably,
mattered.
yeah, a top talent player with the defense that is.
Yeah,
it looks like they're losing a lot of players. I can see it. Yeah.
Danielle Hunter out of Minnesota, committing on a 2-year deal to Houston. That's notable. That'll help Houston and their defense.
That is notable. This team is going to be dangerous. They just signed, of course, they signed Danielle Hunter. They traded for a player, which we'll talk about in a minute. They have young players in Nico Collins and CJ Stroud, and then they have Will Anderson on the other side of Danielle Hunter. This team is dangerous. And if Matthew was here, I'd imagine he'd be saying the exact same thing, and he'd be saying this team is very scary. I think this is however you say the Packers defense is scary. I think the Texans team in general is going to be scary next year.
Under DeMeco Ryans, this defense is going to flourish. Another point that Matthew would make if he was here is he's going to be extremely confused with what's going on with the Giants organization. They now have well-known, well-documented on Matthew's part, the two quarterbacks that they're exact same to him, Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. Suiting up in blue.
Yeah,
Patrick.
Well, for the whole thing with the Daniel Jones thing and the Drew Lock thing is, we don't know who's starting there, because there have been rumors out there that A, they tried to sign Russell Wilson, and B, that they're done with Daniel Jones after they just signed him to a massive contract last year. And so Drew Lock might actually become the starter, and it might be quick if Daniel Jones is like not doing great 8 games into the season next year.
Yeah. Another big free agency signing is Patrick Queen going to division rival Pittsburgh. I honestly wasn't too impressed with Patrick Queen for what the Ravens got him for in the draft. High first round pick. He really didn't command the respect of a high first round pick. In that deal, that's someone that Packers were looking heavily at as well in the draft. And we went out and just got an undrafted free agent who had better stats than Patrick Queen for the same amount of snaps.
Yeah.
And so he commanded a lot of money. I know Pittsburgh liked him a lot, I guess, but I don't see him doing much of anything.
I don't mind him. I will say I don't mind him. He's a good player. I would have wanted him in Washington if we didn't get the 2 players that we signed, which we'll talk about in a minute, but in our homer section. But it's not a bad deal. Honestly, I think it was a 3-year low, like 3-year, $30 million deal or something like that. So they're not paying a lot in cap space wise and salary wise. And so this is a low risk contract for a very good player. But I do agree with you that a high draft pick for Patrick Queen was not necessary, but he hasn't been a bust. He's been, he would have been like a late first round pick for me whenever he was drafted. And I feel like
he's been okay.
I feel like he played a lot better with Roquan Smith next to him, and not having that. Well, I mean, he has T.J. Watt, so that might be a little bit easier also. But not having another middle linebacker next to him where they can, cover at the same time or rush at the same time might not be the best for him. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I think it's a good signing to upgrade your linebacking core in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Another big signing that I think is going to help is Ravens bring in Derrick Henry on a 2-year deal. Now they have 2 running backs behind the center. And they're 2 very different running backs as well. You got Lamar Jackson and you've got Derrick Henry. And as we know, Lamar's our MVP. He can do just about everything. And then Derrick Henry can plow through everyone. And I think this is a great signing for them because they're going to be able to diversify their running game quite a bit and keep Derrick Henry healthy.
Yeah, I do. I like that. I love that. I mean, it just makes Baltimore so much more dangerous in the AFC, which is good for us because we don't dislike the Ravens. We hate the Chiefs. And so a team that is able to beat the Chiefs in the championship game or the playoffs is any team is good for me in that sense. So the Ravens signing this guy or signing Derrick Henry is great in my mind.
Yeah. Falcons, a team that's really been shooting up. Winning their division.
Let's just go over all the Falcons
couple weeks
because they're all big.
Well, hold on. We'll get to them. Let's go in order of what things happen. So they signed Darnell Mooney to a 3-year deal. I don't like this deal.
I don't like the deal. I like the player.
The part of it that's a bit disappointing to me is Darnell Mooney was really only a rookie premier, and he hasn't done much since. And so I want to see.
Since is what I'm asking.
No.
Exactly. Now you have a guy who we're about to talk about in a minute, and I would say honestly, I'd say when healthy, a top 12 quarterback in the league, and so you have that with Darnell Mooney, and Darnell Mooney has never had a receiver except in his last year with DJ Moore to take the pressure off of him, to take the cornerback one off of him, and now that he has that with Drake London and Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, this might be a perfect spot for Darnell Mooney. Like you said, I don't like the contract, but I love the location for Darnell Mooney.
I do, and he's a good young player with an unlimited potential, and so I'm curious to see how they're going to utilize him. I hope they utilize him well, and if they do, I think the quarterback we're about to talk about, we'll get there.
This is all you, Brandon. This next one is all you.
This next one is probably the most gutting news I've seen since Greg Jennings. But Vikings signed former Packers running back Aaron Jones to a 1-year, $7 million deal. And this happened Tuesday morning after he was cut.
Yeah, this happened like 12 hours after he was cut.
Yeah, and this is the news I woke up to. I quite literally looked at my phone and it said Aaron Jones signs with the Minnesota Vikings. Oh my gosh, I've been gutted ever since. And he's kind of in that situation where he's at the organization, he's buying into the Vikings way, and he's doing it to upset the Packers organization. The part that really disappoints me is when Aaron Jones is healthy, he's the best running back in the league. But then this past year we saw, he played 4 to 6 games and did phenomenal in all of those games, but he was unable to stay on the field with a hamstring issue, and he's going to be really the only guy there now that they've cut Alexander Madison. I'm gonna skip one here, and then his quarterback right now is Sam Darnold, and so you compare some of this, offensive firepower to, they've got more talent than Green Bay, that's for sure, but under center they have Sam Darnold, where in comparison Aaron Jones had Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love.
Well,
and so
you say Sam Darnold, I am unsure about that because what happened like 10 minutes ago, and we'll talk about this now just because we're on the Vikings and it has something to do with this quarterback situation. The Vikings traded a 2024 second and a 6th and a 2025 second with the Texans for a 2024 first and a 2024 7th, I believe. I know they got the first. I'm not sure about the 7th. The picks, the late round picks are always not confusing, but memory wise, they're confusing a bit. And so the Texans have like the 22nd overall pick. And so I can imagine that they draft somebody at 9, like a talented, not a talented player, but they draft a need at 9, and then they draft a quarterback, probably JJ McCarthy at 22, if you want me to be honest. So that's probably the reason behind this trade. And honestly, I feel like the Vikings so far, we haven't seen what they drafted yet. But I have a feeling that the Vikings, just based off what they traded for, 2 seconds and a sixth for a first round pick, is honestly a late first round pick where they can get that quarterback in Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy. That's a pretty big win for the Vikings.
Yeah, they'll be well supported. It all depends on the development of the quarterback. As we know, that's so big. You can't just throw a rookie in there and expect them to be a Hall of Famer on day one. That just doesn't happen. And it, as far as I understand, it's never happened. Peyton Manning went through quite a bit of a struggle early on, and holds some records for struggling still, historic struggling. But we know how he turned out. I'm going to go Jets sign Tyrod Taylor to a 1-year deal, which means if he's starting and if Aaron Rodgers is still out, whoever that third string quarterback is going to turn out to be fantastic. It's happened every time he's been a starting quarterback. He ends up injured somehow, and his backup comes out to be announced as the new grand starter. It's a bit interesting there with Aaron Rodgers still. There's a conspiracy theory out there. I don't know if I fully buy into it, but it has to do with the NFL script that Aaron Rodgers is going through all of this political stuff right now. So he's bad news for the New York market, and the Jets cut him, and then the Vikings sign him. And so that's Aaron's path to get to Minnesota. Just like Brett Favre, which I would absolutely hate. That would be terrible. But then he'd be reunited with Aaron Jones, which was the real reason the Vikings had signed him. Notable signing, Bengals get Zach Moss. We noted that because he's a former Homer running back for our league. Patriots signed Jacoby Brissett to a 1-year deal. I know he was previously a Commander,
and then he comes back to the Patriots, and I believe this signing is because Jacoby Brissett is a solid player. He's not like a Sam Darnold where it's like he's in question. Jacoby Brissett is a solid player, just like the next guy we're about to mention. But I believe this just makes sense because because I think the Patriots have picked 3 or 4, and so whoever the Commanders or the Bears don't draft is whoever the Patriots are going to get, and Jacoby Brissett is probably going to start for a couple of games, and then they're going to put him in after he learns a little bit, if that and that's probably why the signing made sense, and it makes perfect sense in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it's a fine signing. I don't have a problem with it. And then Raiders come out and they sign Gardner Minshew to a 2-year deal, which I'm not opposed. I always felt like culturally he fit well in Jacksonville, but also culturally he would fit well in Vegas.
Yeah.
And he's a solid quarterback.
He has that, like, I wouldn't say charm, but I would say it's hard to explain, but he has that like party mindset per se. If you make like that celebrity mindset or that celebrity outlook on things, like remember like a couple years ago he did the around the world, like around the United States in his minivan or whatever, travel or whatever, and he has that hair and that he just makes it look like he seems like a Vegas guy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch Gardner Minshew in all black.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to start, but it seems like it's going to be a QB. It's not like a surefire QB1 with Aiden O'Connell. I think it's going to be a QB competition type deal.
I agree. Giants bring in Devin Singletary, running back, a downgrade from their previous running back.
Yeah,
we'll talk to soon. Panthers sign offensive lineman Robert Hunt to a 5-year deal.
I do like this deal. I do like this deal. I don't like the deal itself. The 5 years, $100 million. I do like the signing from the Panthers, though. You beef up an O-line that was very weak and was not helping Bryce Young at all in that last year. And so you add a guard, and you could add a couple more players in the draft, and you could an offensive coordinator that helped develop Baker Mayfield to a very, very solid quarterback. And you might have something very going for you very, very well in Carolina for the next couple of years if the progression of Bryce Young works out.
Yeah, and this would take Robert all the way up until he's 32, so it'll take him through a very quality time for
basically through Bryce Young's rookie contract, in addition to the 5-year option.
Correct. And then Eagles signed Bryce Huff to a 3-year deal, defensive end.
Personally, I don't like that deal because I'm a Commanders fan, but if I'm an Eagles fan, I really like the deal because Brandon Graham is getting up there. He just signed a 1-year deal, re-signed a 1-year deal to stay with Philly for his 15th year. They just lost Fletcher Cox, which we talked about a minute ago. And so having that pass rush on the other side of Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett is something that the Eagles were looking for last year, and they didn't have it. So I like as an Eagles fan, or if I was an Eagles fan, I'd like this. But as a Commanders fan, playing them twice a year, I don't like it. But overall, a good signing for the Eagles.
These next two we have are, I read this morning, considered the NFL's looking into tampering on both of these deals. So we don't know what they'll issue as the final ruling or what the penalty will be, but we'll make sure to update you on that. Big signing that came out of Philly again was Saquon Barkley, new running back. Again, I really like this. Saquon's a solid running back, and it has to kill the Giants fans to see him stay.
Yeah. Oh, it killed. I don't know if you saw, but it killed Tiki Barber himself. And funny enough for Tiki Barber to say that, because that was the same guy that left and retired a year before the Super Bowl or their Super Bowl run, because he didn't like what Eli Manning was doing in the locker room. He didn't like a lot of the stuff Tom Coughlin was doing. He just wanted out basically, and they weren't going to trade him. And funny enough for him to say that, because he goes on into the media and says, Tiki Barber, Saquon Barkley, you're dead to me. Well, I don't know why you ever signed with the Dynasty deal. You said that the New York Giants, or New York in general, was your home, and then you leave. But funny enough, in that whole situation, is that the New York Giants rumored have been that they did not offer a single contract to Saquon Barkley. They were not done with him, but I think Saquon was asking too much for him. So for Tiki Barber to say that when he was in that exact same spot and retired after like 8 years in the league or 9 years in the league, because he didn't like the way the leadership was going with Eli or Tom Coughlin, speaks a lot about what Tiki Barber is to the New York fan base per se.
Yeah, and then another one, probably the biggest quarterback signing that we've had so far is Kirk Cousins to the Falcons on a 4-year deal, and I like it. Kirk was looking for a longer term deal. We're big fans of Kirk Cousins. I'm now even a bigger fan of Kirk Cousins now that he's not a Viking. But that's also being investigated for tampering. So we'll find out the results of that at some point. If it was tampering, and if it was, what the penalty is.
I'd imagine you've seen this before, but I'm going to mention it again just because it is funny and it is true. I am the manager, agent for Kirk Cousins has to be like the best agent of all time, because he got a fully guaranteed contract out of Minnesota, which after 7 years of being in Minnesota was fully worth it. You know, he brought a lot to Minnesota, although never won a playoff game. He brought hope to Minnesota in a lot of ways. He's a good citizen of Minnesota. He did a lot of charity work, so that goes into that a lot too. He also got 2 franchise tags out of Washington, and then they got this big contract out of Atlanta, which he's like, Kirk Cousins is like 33 or 34, so I'm not sure he plays that long, but his agent must be like the best agent in the NFL.
Yeah, and Kirk's play speaks for himself. He's had some of the most consistent quarterback play.
Yeah, and people like to say that he's
and he's been very disrespected for that quarterback play. But I think the Kirk Cousins signing, along with the Darnell Mooney signing, I think this launches them into competition to win their division. Which really right now their only competition is the Bucs.
Yeah.
And so this them against the Bucs, I like their odds.
I do. I know they just got Bucs guys just got a returning quarterback, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I mean, their offense is exactly the same as last year, and the defense, they only lost Devin White, which we'll also talk about in a minute. So, and they lost their offensive coordinator to Carolina, so that could be a lot of things. But the Falcons seem like they're making the most progression throughout the NFC South.
Yeah, as of so far, they've hit it early. Let's see if they can sustain it. Jaguars signed former Bills receiver Gabe Davis to a 3-year deal. I don't like that.
I don't like that. I don't mind it, but I wanted Gabe Davis, honestly, knowing we were going to lose Curtis Samuel in free agency. I wanted him in Washington because we were going to lose that third receiver, and Gabe Davis is that Curtis Samuel model, that slot receiver that that is fast, can make moves, et cetera, et cetera. And so I wanted him in Washington, and we don't have that currently. We haven't signed anybody, is what I'm saying. And so I would love to see that in Washington.
A guy available. His name's Hunter Renfrow.
Did post June 1st though?
Yeah, post June 1st, after the draft. So we'll see what happens there. Raiders bring in defensive tackle Christian Wilkins on a 4-year deal. I think that was a good signing for them. Vikings bring in
him and Max Crosby together in the middle and on the side, and whoever they draft or whoever they sign again is going to be dangerous for the AFC West altogether because he's like a top 10 defensive tackle in the league. And then Max Crosby, who you thought was defensive player of the year, is probably a top 5 defensive end in the league. So that front seven or that front four, I'm not sure about the linebackers yet, but that front four is going to be dangerous.
Yeah, and then Vikings bring in Jonathan Greenard to a 4-year deal. I still like Danielle Hunter more than Jonathan.
I did too,
if I'm being honest. So this is a downgrade for them, but he's still an effective player. Tony Pollard signs a 3-year deal to go to Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I don't like this for Tony. And we saw it last year in Dallas. Tony Pollard is extremely effective as a running back room. He's not extremely effective as the number one guy. And so having him there as the number one guy concerns me. They need to bring in someone else and split time.
I am not sure he's going to be the number one guy. And I say that because we all know Derrick Henry was the number one guy, completely the number one guy.
Yeah.
With bringing Tony Pollard in, that might open some more room to put Tajaé Sharpe into that mix of a 50-50 or 60-40 or something like that role with Tony Pollard. So he might not get the whole workload like Derrick Henry did. And so that it might actually benefit Tony Pollard in some way, honestly, because of that. So we'll just have to see how they use Tajaé Sharpe and then go from there, honestly, because Tajaé Sharpe is very talented, but he just was rightfully so, overshadowed by Derrick Henry in so many ways because Derrick Henry was that workhorse back, and Tony Pollard and Tajaé Sharpe are more of a elusive third down, pass catching back type guy.
Mm-hmm. Chicago Bears continue to support what we'll talk about in a little bit, as we believe their first round pick is becoming more clear. They signed DeAndre Swift to a 3-year deal, which means they need to draft a quarterback with the last name of Taylor. So they have Taylor Swift in the backfield, rocking it out. But I think this is a fine deal. Chicago is trying to bolster their offense so they can support what they have extremely well. Jaguars signed center Mitch Morse to a 2-year deal, which is okay. Now here's our big news, and I don't really like it, and I'll be honest about that. Steelers signed quarterback Russell Wilson. Russell's been an extremely effective quarterback when he was in Seattle,
and even in Denver last year, and he was just
and I don't know if I like the Russell Wilson signing. He's just kind of being punted around the league right now, and he's not being as effective as he could be. Sitting down and working everything out. I know he had personal differences with Sean Payton, which is fine. That's going to happen between quarterback and coach. But I hope he gets along with Pittsburgh a lot better, and we'll see what they can do. It's a tough division that he's going to have to play, and he's going to have to play Cincinnati every year twice. He's going to have to play Pittsburgh every year twice, and then Cleveland is up and down like crazy all the time. Cowboys sign Eric Kendricks. I think that's a fine deal. He's going to be next to Michael Parsons.
Yeah.
Titans bring in Calvin Ridley on a 4-year deal. I think this was overpaid.
I do too.
For Calvin Ridley.
What's funny though is you mentioned that, and they of course, new GM, new head coach, all of that stuff. So you can't really put them in a comparison, but they signed Calvin Ridley to a 4-year deal. What was like $40 million deal or something, $60 million deal. And they weren't wanting to pay AJ Brown. Of course, Mike Vrabel was, but their previous GM wasn't.
Yeah, and AJ Brown is one of the top receivers in the league.
Probably, yeah.
Seahawks bring in a safety to replace all of them that they cut. Rayshon Jenkins.
Saints. I don't mind that deal. I like this move for the Saints. I mean, they don't have cap space at all, but putting him next
have safeties.
Yeah. Putting him. Well, no, they have Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So putting him at Willie Gay next to, which is a pretty good safety, next to Demario Davis, who they also re-signed, is a pretty solid move. Honestly, it'll bolster the defense quite a bit.
Yeah. Dolphins signed Jordan Poyer. That was one of those top end safeties that hit free agency. Good signing for Miami. Eagles signed Devontae Parker to a 1-year deal out of Miami. He's been effective, and I think he'll be really effective for 1 year in Philly, not as the main guy. Bears bringing in tight end Gerald Everett, furthering further bolstering their defense. I've not been impressed with their tight end play.
You said defense. I just realized that.
Sorry.
But I really like this
offense.
move. I honestly like this move. I mean, Cole Kmet is a good tight end, and I really think that. But the new offensive coordinator coming in for the Bears, we don't know if they're going to implement a 2 tight end system like the Patriots did with Hernandez and Gronk back in 2011, 2012. So we don't. I mean, of course, other teams did that, but they were most notable for doing it because it succeeded so well. But so that might come into play because Gerald Everett is more of a I would say skinny, faster, elusive tight end than Cole Kmet, where Cole Kmet can block. He's a bigger guy. He can get up. He can, do all these things where Gerald Everett's just more of a route runner. So even putting Gerald Everett in the slot at the least is going to be effective too.
Mm-hmm. Dolphins signed Shaq Barrett. Good signing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Bengals bring in Mike Gesicki. I like that deal a lot. Mike has been a consistent tight end, and playing with Joe Burrow is going to help his game. Dolphins signed linebacker Jordan Brooks to a 3-year deal. Good for Miami. Bengals bring in Geno Stone, safety.
That's not right. Sorry, this one.
Yeah, there you go. Eagles bring in Devin White. I think this was a big signing. Devin White was one of those premier middle linebackers, a guy that really commands the defense and goes out and makes really effective plays. This is huge for Philly. Devin White's a guy I wanted in Green Bay. Chiefs.
I wanted him in Washington also, but we did get 2 guys that I'm very, very excited to see, which we'll talk about in our Homer section in a minute. So not happy we didn't get him, but he is younger than one of the guys we got. So, you go with the younger guy that is equally as good, but you also go with the older guy to teach the younger guys. So I'm not actually upset about it, but Devin White just on the younger side of things and to a longer contract than a 1-year deal would have been better than the guy we signed just because of that age. So overall, not disappointed in who we signed, but the age is a factor in a lot of these things.
Yep. And then Chiefs bring in Hollywood Brown. Good signing. He has really good hands, and they won a Super Bowl last year filled with a receiver room that have feet for hands.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then Kendall Fuller lands in Miami after their cut of Xavier Howard. That's a good signing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through some re-signings real quick. Levante David's back with Tampa Bay on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Leonard Williams is back with Seahawks on a 3-year deal. Patriots bring back Michael Onwenu on a 3-year deal.
I wanted him in Washington. He was like one of the top guards in the league or in the free agency pool, and I really wanted him in Washington. So sad we didn't get him, but we did get another guy, which I'm not sure about. I'll be honest, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
We've got a couple of extensions here. Deion Dawkins in Buffalo, their tackle, signs a 3-year extension. Landon Dickerson, offensive guard for Philly, signs a 4-year extension. Baker Mayfield is back.
This is a good one.
And Tampa Bay, and I like this one on a 3-year contract. He earned all of that this past year. Chiefs and Chris Jones, their probably premier defensive player.
I think the top defensive tackle in the league, if you want me to be honest.
Yeah, he's up there. They're on a 5-year deal. Fantastic move for Kansas City. Brandon Graham has a 1-year extension for Philly.
We're just talking. Yep.
Noah Fant is back in Seattle.
I saw that.
Kyle Juszczyk, really the only fullback in the league, if we're being honest.
Yeah, pretty much. Him and CJ Ham with the Vikings really is it.
Yeah, and he's back with the 49ers. He's been doing great things for them. Browns bring back former Packer, former Viking, former Raven, Zadarius Smith on a 2-year deal. He's been doing fine for them. He works really well when there's a good room of people. Bills bring back one of their defensive ends on a 2-year deal. Lions bring back Graham Glasgow, one of their offensive linemen, and then Vikings re-sign Harrison Smith, and he'll probably play like 50 seasons in Minnesota and do killer all 50 of those seasons. Let's go through some trades. We got Deontay Johnson and a 7-round pick for Dante Jackson and a 6-round pick. What is this, Josh? Steelers trade to themselves?
Oh no. Panthers, sorry. I think you know what I'm talking about. But so the Steelers traded Diontae Johnson and a 7th-round pick this year for the Panthers cornerback Diontae Johnson and a 6th-round pick. And Diontae Johnson is a talent, or Dante Johnson is a talented. It's Deontay and Dante, so it's always confusing. But Dante Jackson is a talented corner, and the Patriots or the Steelers just cut Patrick Peterson. So filling that void with the younger guy is something they were probably looking forward to, and they got that. And then not sure about the Deontay Johnson trade. I know he's a very talented receiver, although so I'm not understanding that because now they only have George Pickens basically in that wide receiver room that is a bona fide starter. But for Bryce Young, after signing that offensive guard Robert Hunt and going in and getting a new head coach with a very talented offensive minded coach with the offensive coordinator of the Bucs last year, who really developed Baker Mayfield, who can probably do the same for Bryce Young, and then having Diontae Johnson and Adam Thielen in the same room is going to be very, very helpful for Bryce Young's development in his career for the next couple years.
That's right. Bengals get rid of running back Joe Mixon. They trade him to the Texans for a 7th-round pick straight up. Low bar.
Well, they were going to cut him at first, and then they found out so that it's only a 7th because they were going to cut him at first, and then 12 hours later, they found a trade partner before they officially, quote unquote, officially cut him. And the Texans, they were looking for a running back for a while, and I mean they have Dameon Pierce. But you in this league, you gotta go two running backs, and so this is a very good move for the Texans. So I mean, 7th-round pick, you're giving up nothing for a top 10 running back. That's a solid move by the Texans. They're building on offense as much as they are on defense.
Yeah. Let's see here. Panthers trade Brian Burns to the New York Giants for a 2nd-round pick and a 2025 5th-round pick. That's a nice move for the Giants to get him.
Well, let's go back and look at this a second. Last year, whenever it was last offseason, the Rams offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns and something else, and the Panthers denied it. And then a couple months later, they trade DJ Moore in the first, and whatever for their 1st-round pick to get Bryce Young. So they don't have a 1st-round pick. And now they're regretting everything they're doing. Of course, they traded CMC also. So they're imploding what's his name? David Tepper, the owner, is imploding the whole Panthers team for a bag of chips and a bag of peanuts. And so, you had a better offer last offseason that you should have taken, and now you're only getting a 2nd-round pick for him. But I just like for you to imagine something real quick. Imagine this: you're playing the Giants. You got the Packers offensive line, who is up there. They're right in the middle of the pack of offensive line rankings, basically. And especially now that they released their left tackle, which really didn't play that much of it last year anyway. And you're Jordan Love, and you're looking at Brian Burns on the left side, Leonard Williams or Dexter Lawrence, in the middle, and Kayvon Thibodeau on the right side. What are you going to do?
I'm going to pass the ball fast.
Exactly. I mean, I have to play this team two times a year, and I don't even know if we signed a couple offensive linemen, and we're about to probably draft one too. And I don't even know how they're going to sustain against that ferocious of a defensive line with those 3 Pro Bowlers / All Pros. I'm not sure if they all reach that, but they all definitely deserve that rank. And so, if Daniel Jones can get his stuff together, and be a competent quarterback, and they find a running back besides Devin Singletary that could be a very top running back in the league like Saquon Barkley, I think they're heading in the right direction, especially on defense, and they could be a borderline wild card team again. It just matters because the defense is set. It just matters if they have a quarterback.
Yeah. In other big news, Patriots trade Mac Jones to the Jaguars for a 6th-round pick. I think this one kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, me too. I was driving to church and hear on the news that this guy's traded. And I'm like, for what? A 6th-round pick?
You could have gotten that.
Yeah, we could, but nobody. Well, we traded our quarterback away for something better, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Broncos trade Jerry Jeudy for 5th and 6th-round picks. I like that. I like what the Browns were able to do. I would have done that as the Packers. A big trade that came out yesterday afternoon, this morning,
like 8
somewhere in there.
9 p.m., something like that, 10 p.m.
Keenan Allen is heading to Chicago for a 4th-round pick, furthering their support of the offense and their backup quarterback, Justin Fields, right now. And then the Vikings trade a 2024 second, 2024 sixth, and 2025 second for a 2024 first and 7th from the Texans.
Mm-hmm. I like that move. It just means they're going to draft a quarterback, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry, Sam Darnold. Before we hit up our Homer highlights to wrap up, let's quickly go through what's happening in Chicago. So currently, and Josh and I were texting about this the other day, the trade market for Justin Fields does not exist.
It's dead.
It's dead. And so really there was 2 teams that were interested that we heard about. There was Pittsburgh and there was Atlanta. We know Pittsburgh now has Russell Wilson. We know Atlanta now has Kirk Cousins. Both quarterbacks I currently like more than Justin Fields. And it's nothing against Justin. It's just he hasn't adapted to being a starting quarterback in the NFL as much as he should have. And a lot of that is on Chicago for poor development. And so the Bears are beefing up right now. Justin Fields will be a Bear in 2024, 2025 season. He's going to be a backup quarterback, and he's going to be sitting behind Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to get drafted first overall to Chicago. And what they're going to say is the position is open for starting quarterback, QB1. And I kind of called this in the offseason that the Bears need to keep Justin Fields and just bring in as many people as they can and just have massive competition for that position. Because you've messed it up so much over the past 5 decades. You just need as many people there as you can get. So having 2 young guys that can do relatively well, I think we'd go for it.
Yeah.
And so they're going to draft Caleb Williams. They're going to start Caleb Williams, and he's going to have everything he needs to be fully supported, which is what Justin Fields never had. And it's going to piss off all of the Bears fans because they want Justin Fields as their starting quarterback. And rightfully so. Justin Fields is a freakish athlete, and he can do a lot of stuff, and so can Caleb Williams. And I'm not sure how quickly Caleb Williams is going to adjust to the speed of the NFL. I kind of don't like his attitude towards it, which makes me feel like his personality is going to fit really well in Chicago. He just wants to continue doing his own thing and not follow someone else's plan, which to me as an organization is a huge red flag. But if that's who they take, that's who they take. And it's out of my hands at that point. But those are my thoughts on Chicago. Let's hit up some of the.
Let me see 1 minute. I want to give let me look at this real quick. Justin Fields' contract. I just want to look at this real quick. His rookie contract or whatever. 2024. So this is season. Interesting. It's red. Anyway, that might be 1, 2, 3. That might be the 5th year option. Okay, so this is his last year of his contract. So part of me thinks, based off the moves they're making, they just signed Keenan. They got Keenan Allen. They got DJ Moore. They're not going to draft Marvin Harrison to be wide receiver 3. No way they do that. No way Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide receiver 3 talent either. And so part of me says they're going to draft Caleb Williams, but the other part of me says they're going to trade down, keep Justin Fields because it is last year of his contract. And I don't know I really don't know what they do with that area if they draft Caleb Williams with Justin Fields, because nobody's willing to take him right now. So you're in a very big room of just a balance beam of trying to figure out what they're trying to do. But whoever it is, Justin Fields or Caleb Williams, they have a new offensive coordinator. And this is not Luke Getsy either, where it's just a lot of runs and a lot of whatever. This guy is a pass-oriented guy. And so whoever it is has a lot of weapons to work with. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, 5 guys you can work with. And maybe they draft or sign a wide receiver 3 like Hunter Renfrow for the slot, or draft one in the 2nd, 3rd, whatever round. So let's just say you have 6 guys, and in anticipation they sign one or draft one. There's no way you can't not succeed with that, because that's just too much talent for you not to succeed. And with a new offensive coordinator that is pass oriented, anybody in that position will succeed. So if that offensive coordinator is going to do something right, and I believe he will, And whoever the quarterback is, I'd be very, very, very watchful of the Bears next season because they had a very good defense last year, and they only built on that with signing Kevin Byard and signing a couple other guys. And then they traded for Keenan Allen, signed signed a tight end and Gerald Everett, signed DeAndre Swift, and then have Justin Fields or Caleb Williams at quarterback with a new offensive coordinator. This is going to be very, very, very dangerous for the NFC North in general, but for the NFC in general as well.
I like the potential of it being dangerous. I don't think Caleb Williams has the right mindset for it. If you go back and watch all of his interviews, everything is internal and it's about him and his success. It's not about the team or organization success. And so he's going to go out and he's only going to want to make big plays. And you can do that in college. You can go out and only make big plays. Justin Fields did that. Zach Wilson did that. And we've seen how that's turned out. Sam Darnold did that almost better than anyone. Mitch Trubisky did that. And if your mindset is you're going to come in and you're only going to make big plays, you're going to be a bust. And it's just how it works. The history of the NFL has proven that. Ryan Leaf did that.
Yeah, he did.
Peyton Manning, almost a bust, but he had a mental turnaround and just worked and grinded until he worked cohesively as a team. And that's the way to success. And so if Caleb Williams is not going to recognize that, he will not succeed in the NFL. I guarantee it. He's going to be battling his offense. He's going to be battling his offense. He's going to be battling and battling your offense is the worst thing you can do as a team. He's going to be battling the opponent's defense. It's going to be 21 guys against him.
Yeah.
And that's what you don't need. And so I hope for Chicago that's not the case. As a Packers fan, I hope for Chicago that is the case.
Yeah, I can see that. But I mean, also, it's like you said, Peyton Manning turned that around, and at some point you gotta turn that around because I mean, I wouldn't say he was like that. I would say a lot of that was rookie year struggles. Like a lot of people have that rookie year struggle per se, and so
correct,
like Peyton Manning did, or like I guess Aaron Rodgers technically whenever he wasn't a rookie, but his first year full starting, if that makes sense.
And well, so I went back and I listened to just some of the interviews, right? And so everyone in historical interviews, and so like Peyton Manning, what he talked about a lot coming into the combine and going into the draft was personal growth and personal development, which you do need. But if you only focus on that and you ignore all of the team growth and team development, it's going to make your life exponentially harder. And so Justin Fields came in and he named himself the greatest running quarterback of all time.
True.
He set himself up for failure because he's not wanting to work as a team. And I'm going to use Jordan Love as an example. This past year, things were not going great to start the season. Jordan Love turned around and said, okay, every night as an offense, we're going to come together and we're going to watch film. So we're all on the exact same page. We're going to put in extra time as a team. We can all go out individually and we can lift more weights. We can do more exercises. We can do more drills. But if we're not doing it together as a team, it's not going to work. And we saw that turnaround happen mid-season. And that's what needs to happen in Chicago that I'm not convinced is going to happen.
I can see that, yeah.
So we'll find out. They're going to take Caleb Williams, and it's going to be they're going to come out and they're going to announce, we don't have, no one's been guaranteed the starting job. That's what they're going to say. And then it's going to be Caleb Williams because they drafted him, because they put all this work into him.
Time and effort, yeah.
So, all right, let's hit up some Homer highlights really quick before we get off.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hit up probably the two big ones for the Colts.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco is in. Michael Pittman Jr. is extended on a 3-year deal or re-sign, and Zaire Franklin is also.
Kenny Moore signed, and Grover Stewart. All of these guys re-signed to a 3-year deal, and the problem with this is they're all free agents in 3 years at the same exact time, unless they re-sign them, extend them within that period. So if they're not extended and they don't have cap space, a lot of these guys are gone. So, I mean, great re-signings. You keep your star guys, but and bad. I wouldn't say bad, but I wouldn't say strategic re-signings per se, because if you don't have cap space in 3 years, a lot of these guys are gone, and that growth for Anthony Richardson might not be there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. What do you got for Washington, Josh?
I got a lot. And I will start out by saying I think the Commanders are one of the teams that actually won free agency. And I can't believe I'm saying that as a Commanders fan, because we've been through so much Dan Snyder stuff where it's and Ron Rivera stuff and whoever other stuff where it's been signing average guys, hoping to make them stars, or signing these whatever, where we're finally making moves. So I'll go down a list and I will say, I'll first start by saying, actually, I will start with this. So yesterday we usually record Thursdays at 11:30, and so I was going to come on and say the way they're signing free agencies or free agent players in free agency is making me think that they're going to trade down with like the Patriot in the draft with the Patriots or something and draft a tackle and keep Sam Howell and move them. 3 hours later, they trade Sam Howell and a couple picks to the Seahawks for a third-round pick. I'm a little bit upset about this because I really felt Sam Howell got the raw end of the deal. You know, you were working with who was it? Eric Bieniemy, Ron Rivera, and then a little bit of Dan Snyder's stench still, even though Josh Harris owned the team. So he never got the full experience of being a full-time starter and being a full-time starter with a competent team. But now you have Cliff Kingsbury, you have Dan Quinn, and you have Josh Harris, a full Josh Harris making moves, which we were talking about in this free agency. I was really excited to see him play. And sadly, I'm not going to be able to see that. But if you draft a guy in the 5th round, a quarterback in the 5th round, and even though you traded a couple picks, you traded like a 7th and a 4th or something like that to the Seahawks, and you got a 3rd-round pick back, we now have 6 picks in the top 100. So we can literally draft a player the second. Let's just say we draft Drake May in the 2nd round. We can move back up with a 2nd, a 3rd, and probably a 2nd next year into like the 15th or this 15th, any slot in the draft from 15 to 32, and still get another good player. This is great move by Adam Peters, and honestly, this is an A+ work in my opinion. And I'm so excited for the draft because what they're doing in free agency is something that I've never seen in my lifetime as a Commanders fan, and I'm just excited for it all. So back to our free agent signings, we signed Marcus Mariota, which made me believe that we were going to keep Sam Howell because Marcus Mariota is a backup. And I thought Sam Howell, he was going to be that backup to Sam Howell after we let Jacoby Brissett go. I was wrong. Like I just talked about, Sam Howell was traded to the Seahawks. We signed Austin Ekeler to a 2-year deal. Although he's on the lower end of the back end of his career, I still think this is a very good signing. We've replaced Antonio Gibson, who also left for the Patriots, with Austin Ekeler. And Austin Ekeler in the red zone is a very, very effective player, a touchdown machine at that. And we were very not effective per se in the red zone last year, in the last couple of years. So Austin Ekeler, I give a B- grade. I like it. Bobby Wagner, linebacker. This is the guy I wanted. Although he's at the very, very end of his career. He's drafted in like 2011, 2012. He was an All-Pro last year. He was a Pro Bowl last year. He led the NFL in tackles last year. Not just his team, but the NFL at age like 35, 33, something like that. And so for this guy to come in, mentor the guy I'm about to talk about, the other linebacker we signed, which I'm about to talk about in a minute, and Jamin Davis, is something that I was wanting to. One of the reasons I wanted the Commanders to sign him, but also for his play. And so we have 3 talented linebackers in that front 7, along with our front 4 of Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and the 2 defensive ends we just signed, or 3 defensive ends we just signed. That is going to be very exciting for the Commanders' defense going forward. We signed Jeremy Chin from the Panthers. We needed a free safety. We lost our strong safety / free safety. We lost Cameron Curl in the free agency to the Rams. Although it's a 1-year deal, I'm very excited. Jeremy Chin is a very good box safety and a very good back end safety. I love this deal. I love this player. Clelin Ferrell and Dante Fowler. Clelin Ferrell is more of a rotational player for me, in my opinion. Dante Fowler would probably be a starter, and Dante Fowler is a very good starter. Not a very great starter, but he is a very serviceable starter. He can make plays when he's needed. He has proven that in the past. And signed Nick Allegretti. Not sure about this one. I've never seen him play. I know he came in for Joe Thuney in the Super Bowl and played with a torn MCL. So he's tough as nails, and he may be our starter. He may not, but he's definitely better than our left guard we had before. So you pair this up with the center we just signed I'll mention in a couple minutes, Sam Cosmi, and probably a drafted tackle at some point in the 2nd round or the 1st round, and Nick Allegretti, you have a pretty good offensive line for whoever a quarterback is. The other linebacker I was talking about with Bobby Wagner is Frank Louvu from Carolina, another guy who is a very good pass rushing linebacker that I'm very excited to see. If we run a 3-4 or 4-3 instead of a 3-4, I'm not sure what our new defensive coordinator will do, but you have Jamin Davis and Frank Louvu on the outside and then Bobby Wagner in the middle. You're pretty much set for success because these guys are very talented players, and Frank Louvu is such an underrated pickup that nobody's talking about him, and everybody who knows about Frankie Louvu is very, very surprised, and this is a very good pickup for the Commanders. Brandon McManus, a kicker. A little bit indifferent about this one. I know Joey Slye missed a couple of kicks last year. Brandon McManus is definitely an upgrade at kicker, but I'm not saying Joey Slye is anything bad. So it may just be coming down to a kicker competition in free agency. Defensive tackle / defensive end, Dorrance Armstrong. One of Dan Quinn's guys from Dallas. I like this pickup. People are coming to Washington because of Dan Quinn and because of Adam Peters, and that speaks a lot of volume about the guys and the character that they have at head coach, at offensive coordinator, and at the front office roles. Signed center Tyler Biadasz. I love this pickup. We have a starting center finally. It just strengthens our offensive line, which whatever quarterback we draft is going to be very, very effective because of this offensive line we're picking up or we're creating. Mentioned Sam Howell and we re-signed defensive end F.A. Abuda and re-signed safety Jeremy Reeves. I love these guys. These are more so rotational players / special team players, but these guys are very, very good players in the roles they play, whether rotational backup or special teams. Jeremy Reeves was an all-pro special teams player 2 years ago. So I'm very excited to see these guys back. So I believe overall my grade for free agency for the Commanders, it might honestly be an A-, and that might be the first time I'm saying that in my lifetime.
All right. Listen, Packers only have a few moves that they've made. We'd already talked about A.J. Dillon being cut, Aaron Jones being cut. He's re-signed with the Vikings shortly after. Before he was cut, we signed Josh Jacobs. So for about 45 minutes, we had the best running back room in the league. Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon. Yeah, about 45 minutes. Xavier McKinney, no longer a Giant. He is now a Green Bay Packers safety, which was a big need for us, and he is a dog. I am so excited to have him and to work with Jeff Hafley. It's going to be great. With the rumors coming around, nothing official yet from the NFL about the new kick return rules. Re-signing Keyshawn Nixon to a 3-year deal was crucial. We've seen him be extremely effective in normal kick return circumstances. And so now if we can turn that around to have long-term success, maybe 12 touchdowns on kick returns this season, that'll look really good. David Bakhtiari cut. He is out. And Josh alluded to this earlier. He really hasn't – he's played, I think, less than 50 snaps in the past 3 years.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, he's always injured. He's one of the guys that like –
He had a nasty injury in the 2020 season during practice where he tore a bunch of stuff, and he's never fully recovered, and his body has not taken well to the recovery process. And so I wish him all the luck.
Can imagine he lands in New York.
Yeah, New York is the obvious spot. Aaron's going to want him. And then A.J. Dillon re-signed. He will be a Packer. Our backfield is now Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, Emmanuel Wilson, and whoever we pick up in the draft.
Yeah. So what are you giving your what grade are you giving your team in free agency? Whether it's
C. Yeah.
If they didn't cut Aaron Jones kept him and Josh Jacobs, and then didn't re-sign A.J. Dillon, what would you give them?
So if Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs was our backfield, we had Xavier McKinney, Keyshawn Nixon, cut David Bakhtiari, which was expected. We also cut Campbell, which was also expected.
I forgot about that.
And A.J. Dillon was cut. I'd say B+, A-, somewhere in there. But Aaron Jones was the big one. But he's also been injured a lot with his hamstring. And so I'm not sure that he's going to get the full complementary snaps that he's going to want in Minnesota. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah. So Brandon gave him a C+, gave his team a C+. I gave mine an A-. Matthew, I'd probably say if my opinion, Matthew would probably give the Colts a B or a B+, just because they re-signed the key guys, got a backup. Gardner Minshew left. They signed another backup, a proven backup in Joe Flacco, and free agency, of course, is not done. But the Colts never make good big moves, so they're probably done. So I'd say, in my opinion, A- for the Commanders. Like you said, C+, C for the Packers. I agree with that. And then a B or B- for the Colts. And that's what we got for our homer teams. And we'll be back next week. We might be back actually Monday for some trivia, depending on how that goes. But we'll be back definitely back next Thursday, probably, or sometime next week, to talk about the second round of free agency and the second round of all this craziness that's going on in the league, whether it's trades, whether it's signings, whether it's cuts, whatever. And at some point, you can expect in the next month a mock draft as all this pans out. We see who is on our team, who's our starters, what our team needs are, and going forward, what we need from there. So join us next week as we talk about all the free agency craziness, and we'll see you next week.